Episode 2 Pip Management. The power distributor is one of the most important modules within a ship, and its control is an extremely important skill to learn. In this episode, we'll be looking into pip management and the different ways in which this technique is employed during combat. Let's start off by taking a look at how pip positions influence capacitor charge and discharge. First of all, we'll be focusing on the pip management indicator, which can be found in the bottom right corner of your HUD. It is divided into three parts. SYS stands for Systems. This capacitor is responsible for your shields and utility mounts. ENG stands for Engines. This capacitor is responsible for the thruster power. And WEP is short for Weapons. This capacitor is responsible for diverting power to offensive capabilities. There are 4 levels of priority that can be given to each system, known as pips. The pilot is responsible for distributing the total of 6 pips amongst the capacitors. Now that we've established what pips are, we're going to look at the effects of pip distribution in different capacitors. First of all, the systems capacitor. Pip management has a significant effect on a ship's defensive capabilities, especially when it comes to shields. Adding pips to systems influences your shields in 2 ways. Shields constantly regen when below 100%, unless they have recently taken or are taking damage. To achieve this, they receive power from your system's capacitor. Therefore, if your system's cap is empty, your shields will not regen. This is especially important when running bi-weave shields, as these depend on regen and have a higher cap draw. Another thing of note is that the amount of pips to systems directly influences your shield's actual strength. Although your shield's resistances will stay the same, the amount of effective megajoules at your disposal will depend on how many pips you have in systems. The value indicated under Statistics in the right panel of your UI refers to your shield strength with 0 pips to systems. With 4 pips to systems, this value is effectively multiplied by 2.5 times, as each pip increases the shield's resistance to damage. Let's use my FDL's prismatic shields as an example. The values below represent the effective HP you get from the increased resistance to damage you gain from pips. This is not the same as your shield's resistances, as they'll stay the same regardless of pip position. With 0 pips to systems, I get 2010 megajoules. With 1 pip, I have around 2460 megajoules. With 2 pips, that becomes 3010 megajoules. With 3, around 3800 megajoules. And with 4 pips to systems, I get a total of 5025 effective megajoules. This makes a massive difference in a fight, and it's one of the reasons having a shield is so important in a lot of situations. As a side note, make sure you remember that your system's capacitor is also responsible for keeping your other utility mounts running, for example, chaff and heat sinks, and keeping these active is also crucial. Secondly, the engine's capacitor. The basic principle here is that the more pips you have in your engine's capacitor, the higher the maneuverability of your ship, because the thrusters are more powerful. This split screen footage demonstrates the difference in pitch speed purely based on pip distribution. With 4 pips to engines, the ship's maneuverability is vastly improved, and combined with keeping your speed within the blue zone, you can reach your maximum pitch speed. Having pips to engines also has a benefit for boost usage, as the capacitor can recharge more quickly to refill after a boost has been used. The maneuverability bonus during a boost is also dependent on pips. You can view the video on thruster control via the link in the description, which covers the use of boost and the blue zone in more detail. Finally, the weapons capacitor. This capacitor directly influences how much power your weapons have at their disposal. The amount of cap draw being used in this area depends entirely on the type of weapon used and its modification. For instance, an efficient multi-cannon will have very little cap draw, whilst an overcharged beam laser would have a lot more. Another thing of note is that weapons fire increases your ship's heat output. This will be covered in a future video on heat management, but the important thing of note here is that heat and capacitor draw are linked. If a weapon is fired when the weapon's capacitor is nearly empty, the ship's heat will increase drastically more than if the weapon would be fired at a full cap. In effect, the final increase in heat from firing weapons will depend on the combination between the amount of capacitor charge the weapon uses and its actual heat production. For example, railguns produce a lot more heat compared to their cap draw than PAs do. Here's a demonstration. This is what happens when I fire 2 long-range railguns with a full cap and 4 pips to weapons. And this is what happens when I fire them with no pips to weapons and an almost empty cap. This illustrates just how important it is to keep your weapon's capacitor stocked up. Not only to let your weapons fire, but also to keep your heat levels within manageable levels. And that's the basics of pip management. Hopefully this video has cleared up the rather murky information around pips and their function. Pip management as a skill is very dependent on practice, but understanding the way in which pip positions influence your ship's handling and capabilities really helps during a fight. If you have any questions about the video, please leave a comment below. Alternatively, if you want even more detailed information, then I would suggest heading to the Galactic Combat Initiative Discord. GCI is a community-based combat support group where you can receive help from some of the best pilots in the game. With that, I leave you till the next video. Have fun and fly well.